Well, ladies and gentlemen, the new batch of Canon PowerShot compacts has just been announced 3 days ago actually, and we happen to have the first review of the Canon PowerShot Elph 300 IS. Now, one thing you'll notice about this camera is the model name. It's like Canon couldn't figure out whether or not they wanted to retain the PowerShot name or they wanted to hark back to the days of yesteryear with the Elph, so they just kept them both, and it led to a very long model name. That aside, this is the replacement for last year's PowerShot SD1400 IS, and this camera actually answers every prayer that we sent out. We're giving a major shout out to Canon here for heeding all of our advice in our previous review, and we'll start by talking about the major changes you'll see on this model versus last year's. First off, the image sensor has been completely revamped. We have a 12.1 megapixel CMOS sensor versus last year's 14.1 megapixel CCD. The 300HS's sensor is also part of Canon's HS system, which stands for high sensitivity. What that means is this sensor is placed slightly differently for better light gathering, and the pixels are larger. Also, this pint-sized little guy packs in 1080p HD video at 24 frames per second. It has a 24mm wide-angle lens compared to last year's 28mm. Canon threw on a wraparound zoom toggle, boosted the zoom to a 5x optical, and we can now optically zoom in video mode. You'll also notice a dedicated video record button, which simplifies the mode switch. Smart Auto mode on the Elph 300HS has also been expanded. This camera can now recognize up to 32 different scenes versus last year's 22 different scenes. And lastly, the camera adopts the new toy camera and monochrome settings, and we can now shoot in super slow motion video. We will say that we were not expecting this level of upgrades for this particular type of camera. It's one of these slim, compact, pocket-sized style cams that can kind of travel with you anywhere you go. When we talk about length and width, this camera is about the same size as a credit card, and it's 3/4 of an inch thick. After spending quite a lot of time with the Elph 300HS, we can safely say that the HS sensor was a definite improvement, specifically in low light. There's a handheld night scene that takes 3 images at different exposures and combines them together, and the performance with that was great. Even in bright light, we noticed a slight boost in detail. So overall, the Elph 300HS exhibited an improvement in image quality. Now, when we talk about 1080p video, in bright light, this camera is dynamite. In low light, the noise came on pretty thick, but it was black noise and it wasn't that heavy. There were some environments where noise wasn't necessary, but it was there. But compared to other cameras in this class, this is one of the best 1080p performances you can get out of a camera this size. A few things to take into consideration when shooting videos. Now, it's great that we could zoom optically, but the zoom is very slow. The other thing is autofocus very slow. So those are just 2 things you'll have to get used to when shooting videos. Now, we talk about features on this camera. Although we don't get a full manual suite, we do get plenty for the average point-and shooter. Probably even more. ISO can be set from 100 up to 3200. We have full white balance options with manual mode. There's a long shutter if you're a long exposure junkie that goes down to 15 seconds. The Elph 300HS has a burst mode. It has a best shot selection mode that picks the best shot out of a sequence of images. And it has a slew of image effects like super vivid and posterize. And we will say we love the new toy camera mode. However, the monochrome mode, we could actually attain black and white and sepia settings in the My Colors menu, so it was kind of useless. While we're riding the negative train, let's also talk about the flash. The flash is located a little too close to the lens. You will see a shadow in the bottom right-hand corner of some of your images depending on your focal length and also depending on the lighting conditions. So that's something to take into consideration. We think Canon should just bump the flash over to the right side of the camera. Also, the 2.7-inch LCD screen has a 230,000 pixel resolution. It's definitely not the best. We'd like to see some more pixels in that department. Another thing to consider with the Elph 300HS is that it has a tiny rechargeable lithium-ion battery, so don't expect the best battery life out of this camera. You'll probably need an extra one. For memory, this camera supports SD, SDHC, and SDXC cards. We recommend shooting with a higher class card. We used a SanDisk Extreme Pro, and that pretty much took care of all of our 1080p needs. So this has been the Canon PowerShot Elph 300 HS. The Elph is back, baby. Canon listened to all of our concerns and they went beyond our expectations with the Canon PowerShot Elph 300 HS. Be sure to check out the rest of our new Elph reviews that are coming out within the coming weeks. For InfoSync World, I'm Mike Perlman.